Hey, it's me, the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. Hey, check out my new tag team, baby, Monty and the Pharaoh.
Hey, Jimmy, don't forget to tell them about Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast.
Well, you know what, I would, but you already did it.
It's Monty and the Pharaoh.
The Monty and Pharaoh Show.
Monty and Pharaoh, bro.
Monty and the Pharaoh. The Monty and the Pharaoh.
You've got the future Hall of Famer, that rocker, Marty Jannetty, MJ in the house, and I'm sitting here with two more future Hall of Famers, Monty and the Pharaoh. We're doing that stuff and we gonna rock it.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
It's Monty and the Pharaoh.
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 And Monty and the Pharaoh. Oh, is it Monty and the Pharaoh?
Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
Hey, cut music. When you want the best in professional wrestling, Long Island, there's only one place you're going to get it, right here.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Now, that's not just the coolest, and that's not just the best. That, my friends, is just incredible.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Duh.
Hey! Nikita Koloff, the Russian Nightmare! And you're watching the #1 show on Long Island with Monty and the Pharaoh.
Let's all get naked and get in the pool. Some are going to be a little longer than others. Some are going to be big at the top. Some are going to be smaller.
Some are going to be really tiny.
Exactly, but guess what?
You know,
We're starting somewhere. And you got to start somewhere. So the youth today,
we may have to start in the kiddie pool, but go on.
hey, you know, you do what you got to do.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, straight out of Indie Music TV. Have the legendary Dr. Dre in house. Doctor, thank you.
Hey!
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. I come from a family that's very political. We did a lot of community work. Done a lot of community service in my day. Oh, boy, I tell you that. And, you know, you got to understand something, that we live on this planet together. It's just like wrestling. You can't have wrestling without another opponent.
Right.
And sometimes you got to have 4 or 5 of those opponents, and you got to put a cage up. It's called the cage match.
Yeah.
But guess what happens? The audience enjoys it. The athletes enjoy it. And the viewers who are at home, like myself as a young kid, I was jumping off the top of my bunk bed and slamming my brother years ago. It's a beautiful thing.
That's beautiful.
But you have to embrace those things and understand a lot of that comes from the love we get from being entertained by such shows. I mean, I started back at AWA, into the WWF, into the WWE, all the way to where we are today. Wrestling is it's a way of life.
So wait, you grew up in New York, right?
Yes,
So
I grew up right here on Long Island.
So you were a WWF guy.
No, the AWA back
No,
when
but that's what I'm saying. How do you venture into the AWA being from New
You
York?
just watching the
Because-
ESPN show?
No, I'm talking about the one that used to come on Channel 9 at midnight.
Okay.
And after that, the roller derby came on with the women.
Right.
That's how far back I go.
Okay.
I go back to the time when TV was off after a certain hour.
Right.
And they did the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's like,
Yeah, the national anthem would
T-
come
that's
on
what I said.
midnight.
TV's
Right.
sit.
Yeah.
My father said, would you go to sleep and turn the idiot box off? He said, because if you sit in front of it long enough, you become an idiot. But yeah, I used to
I
watch
agree.
wrestling on Channel 9, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw Hulk Hogan, and we were so impressed. And Rowdy Piper was one of my favorites, because I couldn't believe he had a kilt on.
Yeah.
And Piper's Pit, I loved it. You know, the $1 Million Man, all of those guys. You know, Stone Cold Steve Austin, all of those guys progressed through all of that. The Junkyard Dog, you know, the Legion of Doom, all those, the Undertaker. Yeah, come on.
You still watch wrestling today?
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. I remember when I challenged The Rock to a fall.
Challenge the Rock?
I challenged The Rock straight up. I said, I think you're a candy. And he said, do you understand that I have to beat you now? I said, I'd like to see you try it. And I ran fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't catch me.
It's understandable.
But I think somewhere in his future he's going to catch me one day.
Well, he smells what you're cooking.
He already smelled what I was cooking, and it wasn't ribs, ladies and gentlemen.
That's pretty funny.
It wasn't ribs.
Oh my
But
God.
no, I had fun with those guys. I love it. See, when you understand what it is, and I remember when Rocky III came out, and Mr. T was fighting with Hulk Hogan in wrestling, I said, there's no way Mr. T is going to go out there and wrestle with these guys. And Hulk Hogan was out there because he was Thunder Lips on Rocky III, but we knew it was Hulk Hogan. But then I liked when he was in the NWO. Love wrestling. The energy from wrestling is so great.
Dre, how did you feel about the controversies with what Hogan has, gone through in the recent years with the tape and what he had said? How did you feel about all of that, knowing that you loved watching Hogan wrestle? Then you hear some of the racist comments and
Look, let me explain the whole prejudicial comments
Please.
people make, and we have to understand the time they make it,
Okay.
and how we've evolved. The best part of that word is evolving, and he understood, and he can look back and say, you know what, I was wrong, I made a mistake. The one thing about me is I live with forgiveness.
Okay.
You got to forgive the guy. Look, you can't wipe out all the other good things he did for all of the Hulkamaniacs and all them folks out there that followed him and ripped their shirts off. And he had to change his thinking. Because when we talk about when I started watching wrestling, there was a certain sense of thinking in this country that existed. It's just what it was.
Right.
But we are evolving. If we can sit back and say, hey, man, you need to change that. I don't like you saying that way to me. Just like you don't like me calling you a big buffoon. That's not good for you. So let's find better ways to communicate, but also understand at the heart who that person is. So yes, he made some very off-color comments, but who doesn't?
Right.
We don't live in a society where everything is perfect.
Right.
But we can express ourselves and communicate in a fashion that I can tell you, you know what? You could get away with that, then we've moved on. Let's move on. As you mentioned earlier about Lenny Bruce in the 50s, they went after him. George Carlin used to talk about the seven deadly words he couldn't mention.
Right.
There's a lot of great comedians. Milton Berle. I mean, I'll go through the list of them. This is prior to anybody doing the censorship thing. Shecky Green of the world. They all did it. Don Rickles, one of my favorites.
Sure.
Called everybody a hockey puck.
Sure.
I know what that meant. But when you go behind the scenes and you see what this man does,
Right.
you got to go, wait a minute. Because at one point in my life, I used to think Frank Sinatra was a bad man.
Oh, Sinatra
But
was
Sinatra,
quite the civil rights fighter.
after
from what I
doing
understand.
my research
Yeah.
and seeing all the things he did for people of color, and Sammy Davis, I mean, tremendous things. He was breaking ground before it was popular.
Right. Right.
So it's like, who am I to judge him on this incident when there's a whole journey of his life that you have to understand? So even for Hulk Hogan and for any wrestler out there, that word flies out there, the N-word flies out there, other words fly out there. We know that. I remember the Iron Sheik, and he was got to be the bravest man on the planet. He was out there after terrorist attacks were happening.
Sure.
Right.
And he still went out there.
Did
And
his
he had to
thing.
face all that
Well, then
vitriol.
again, you'll do anything for $100,000, right?
Exactly. I think what's happening with the youth is they're actually speaking the way it was spoken 50, 60 years ago, 70 years ago.
Bingo.
When Malcolm X and Martin Luther King walked and spoke their mind, they now have the one thing they didn't have. They have technology. So when they speak amongst each other, they can reach each other around the country. And I'm not just talking about black and brown folks. I'm talking about white folks, Asian folks, green folks, purple folks. Everybody can start to speak. So we now can get a better understanding of what this country was supposed to be about. See, this country wrote, very simple, in the Declaration of Independence, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And we don't understand the fight that happened when John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, and many others were fighting for equality of all people that were here. But we had to go through a process. So then we got to the Constitution where we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice and pure domestic tranquility. See, that's the thing. Everybody, because we grow up so far apart, but yet we're so close. And what technology does now, it doesn't bring us closer together, put the technology down and go shake a hand and sit down with somebody. Grab a beer, grab a glass of wine, smoke a dooba, whatever you do, that you can talk to each other and say, you know what? I wasn't raised like that. My grandfather told me this, because your color of your skin, you're this way. And then I hang out with you, and I don't feel that at all. You see, once we tear down that wall of prejudice, that's why we throw the racism word out there too fast. Racism is an economic term. It's not really a term of, what should I say? A term that deals with your attitude. Prejudice is your attitude. That's why the prefix of the word is prejudge. And we fall into that because everybody stereotypes each other because everybody wants to feel comfortable in their skin. So let's get comfortable in our skin. Let's all get naked and get in the pool. Some are going to be a little longer than others. Some are going to be big at the top. Some are going to be smaller.
Some are going to be really tiny.
Exactly. But guess what? We're starting somewhere. And you got to start somewhere. So the youth today.
We may have to start in the kiddie pool, but go on.
Hey, you do what you got to do. Some may have to take an extra shower. But the bottom line,
There you go.
the bottom line, the youth are trying to show that they paid attention to what's going on in the past, and they see nothing took place. We're still stuck in the same muck and mire, and we shouldn't be. Why are we debating over helping people right now who are unemployed, who are sick, and we're playing games in Congress with people who are like 80 years old, still operating on an 80-year-old mentality?
Nailed it.
Look, coming from a guy that was born in the 60s and was around when rap music and hip-hop started, and watching the radical attitudes of great R&B, rock and roll artists, folk artists, and I was saying, wait a minute, rap's been around since Abbott and Costello and Danny Kaye. What are you talking about? Ella Fitzgerald. I mean, I can go through a ton of people, but it was a different form. So when we came out with this CNN from the streets, this MSNBC, this Fox News, that we came directly with what was exactly happening, and we put a beat behind it, and we decided to shake our booties to it. It threatened people. They're like, well, what are you doing? You can't do that. I said, what are you talking about? Our constitutional rights tell us we can do that. So when people throw out the Second Amendment right, Second Amendment agenda, when they were talking about a Second Amendment, they didn't have an AR-15. They didn't have 9mm pistols.
That's true.
They were talking about the British coming in and knocking their door out, banging their wife, and screwing the sheep too.
With a mullet.
Wait, with a mullet.
With a mullet.
And a one-shot, come on.
Right.
Things evolved.
And a butter knife.
Those documents were meant to live and grow with the society.
Right.
Not, we're going to just hang in here and this is the only thing. And that's where the conflict is. To ease the conflict, we have to pull that rug up and get the dirt from under that rug and say, you know what? We all screwed up.
You went into an era where MTV was solely hair metal, white, young music, and you broke the wall down.
Slammed it down.
Okay, I was there. I watched it happen. So I think you're undercutting what you have done for rap music and who you are. I have to be honest there.
I thank you for that praise, and I love you for that blessing. But I'm going to explain to you the real. I'm going to say 6 letters. Run, DMC. Then I'm going to say a guy's name who I love, Prince. And then I'm going to say the real man who broke the wall down was Michael Jackson.
Sure.
They broke the walls down. What we did, we went for ours, and you can go for yours. That's what we do. That's what the whole essence of what rap music was. But even prior to that, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5 with The Message broke the barriers on MTV. What we were blessed at doing, because of a man named Peter Doherty, the late great Peter Doherty, and the late great Ted Demme, whose forevision of this music, of this culture, found a fat black guy from Long Island and a tall skinny guy from Queens, and Fab Five Freddy, who I'm a big fan of, and put this crazy program on called Yo MTV Raps. And the crazy part about it was I was in the pilot, unknown, because I was introducing Public Enemy on stage, who Chuck D and I went to school at Adelphi University. So Run DMC did the pilot, And I'm at the Def Jam tour introducing it. And months later, Peter Doherty, who knew me because I was DJing for the Beasties for a while, I even wrote a song on the Raising Hell album with my group Original Concept called Proud to Be Black. So we had an understanding of what we did on MTV. And the one promise Ed and I made to ourselves from day one, we would never be MTV. We were going to be us. Right. Stay who we are. So when you got to see it and you saw us not try to take your hair bands down, because I loved AC/DC, I loved Led Zeppelin, I loved Poison. I mean, I go down the list. I had all those records. I'm a DJ. That's what I did. I DJed many a wedding, bar mitzvah, social gathering, and they all weren't black. Trust me. So I had all that exposure in those music. So when Aerosmith and Run DMC got together to Walk This Way and knock that wall down, and I sat in the audience and watched that video being made, I said, who knows where we're going to go? So after 3 spring breaks later, Ed and I are standing on a stage after a hurricane with 65,000 kids from college of all different walks of life, different colors, with Biz Markie, Tribe Called Quest, leaders of the new school, and others. And we stood out there and we said, I think we just blew up. I think we just brought everybody together. And that was the essential thing that Yo MTV Raps did. We brought everyone together. We wanted to make sure that we had predecessors that were greater than us. Don Cornelius and Soul Train, I idolized.
Soul Train.
You know, I idolized Dick Clark at American Bandstand. I mean, even Denny Terrio and Dance Fever. I'm a big fan of John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. Big fan. I used to wear the polyester. I used to walk around thinking, doom, doom, doom. Look at my walk, look at my walk. But when we did Yo MTV Raps, I didn't have to fake it. Man. I didn't have to be Dr. Dre. I was and am and still are. It's bad grammar, but my mother will kick me in the butt. Dr. Dre. And so was Ed. And so was T-Money. And Fab Five Freddy. We didn't look for the accolades. So when we got shunned, I mean, I went to many a Video Music Award, and we didn't even get to announce a video. We were the most popular people on the channel. They came with rules and excuses. Oh, well, no VJ is giving out awards. We weren't VJs.
No.
We were hosts.
Right.
And our show garnished people like Mel Gibson in a kilt. Very funny. Howard Stern was on Yo MTV Raps. Yes, he was. Our first guest was Carole King, who had a hit Broadway show. First guest on Yo MTV Raps today was Carole King. You know why? Ed and I were shooting the show. She was sitting on a grandstand in the studio. And I said, Ted, who is that? So Ted walked over there and I said, it's Carole King. Which want to be on the show? I said, yeah. And they were like, but she's not into rap. Come on, bring her in. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Come on, bring her in. So when I met Arnold Schwarzenegger at the the fitness thing, and he said, I got to get the weight off of you. I said, I got to get the weight off of you. Look at you, you're all swollen up. We joked and laughed because he knew who I was. Not was, am. So our goal was to bring those things down. We were the first, we were for social media before the computer was there. And Alan Hunter was one of the guys that tried to train me on working on computers.
Did you come across any resistance as the show was taking off from anybody behind the scenes giving you an attitude or being afraid of the ground you were breaking, the walls you were knocking down? Did you come across any of that?
Our resistance was no resistance and a lot of resistance, and I'll explain that real simple. A gentleman by the name of Bobby Brown, was in a group called New Edition, was the #1 artist of the moment with a song called My Prerogative. Ed and I saw Bobby at a party. We were hanging out at Tuesday night. We taped on Wednesdays. I said, hey, Bobby, man, why don't you come by? You know, do Yo. Yeah, I'm going to come by. What time? Told him, yeah, he's never going to show up at the National Studio. Never, nah. Bobby's crazy. And I knew Bobby when he was just a New Edition.
Right.
That's how long I've known Bobby. And I hung out with Bobby when he was king of stage with his brother Tommy and my brother Fred. We all hung in the same limo together. So we went to tape that week. And Ted wasn't there. So we were doing it ourselves. The other producer, Mo Zenbro, I believe, was there. No, Ted wasn't there. I remember. Because he didn't even know. And we did a whole week with Bobby Brown, unbeknownst to MTV. No one knew.
Okay.
Bobby did I'd Love a Dance. We got down, we talked history, we had jokes, everything. Bobby Brown, Bobby Brown, Bobby Brown. Biggest star on the planet. Nobody knew. Flicked on your MTV Raps the next week because we always tape the week ahead. Bobby Brown comes dancing across the thing. How did you do this? We've been trying to get him on MTV, and now he refuses. Because he was on MTV. He was on Yo MTV Raps. He didn't want to be on MTV. He wanted to be on Yo MTV Raps Today.
Wow.
With Dr. Dre and Ed Lover.
Does Bobby Brown get a bad rap for the death of Whitney Houston?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing about that is, and Bobby's done many great interviews about it, and even members of New Edition, Mike Bivins and company, and Ralph Tresvant and Johnny Gill, they all talk about that. It's like it was always his perception. Bobby had a bad boy perception. He did. He was a young kid who blew up and was a megawatt star with New Edition. Then when he went off and he went on his own, like you said, it's his prerogative. But between what happened between Bobby and Whitney should stay between Bobby and Whitney. We don't know when the cameras were shut off after their reality show what really went on. We know, oh yeah, Bobby was always in the jail. Bobby always owed this. Bobby always owed that. Yeah, because Bobby was that type of person. Okay, Bobby wasn't raised and graduated from Harvard. Bobby was raised in the street. Bobby was a survivor. So was members of his family. And so was Whitney Houston, believe it or not, in her own way. And people started finding it out after Whitney's death, which is a tragedy. We missed that voice. For me in my life, I've done nothing. I'm like, I took a few steps. And the thing all along the way is, the one thing about our group, and I call my Adelphi crew at WBAU at 90.3 FM, the greatest incubator I had in my life. Because we all became marketers, artists, film stars, television stars, video stars. We did all of these things in this incubator before there was a Yo MTV Raps. Before MTV decided to mess with us, we found ways to get it out there, and we hustled the street like no one else. And that's in the book coming up.
You guys were perfecting your craft before everybody else knew it, you know.
And didn't know it.
Right.
All we knew is 2 turntables and a microphone,
That's awesome.
and we would rock parties. We would rock park jams with thousands and thousands of people, and police would come up. You guys got to stop it. There's going to be a riot breaking out because you're just cutting the music off. All those people were dancing. They were having a great time. The MCs were keeping the crowd moving. The DJ was keeping the butt swaying. Then you came on with your craziness. See, that's where the friction comes in. Rather than going and speaking and witnessing what's going on,
Right.
you got to take a moment out. And I believe that reflects on the early days of rock and roll. After I watched all these different documentaries, movies with different artists, and I said, man, we did the same thing they did, but we did it our way.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it all.
Speaking of the early days of rock and roll, I'm really curious. I was fortunate enough to work with Eddie Kramer, who was Jimi Hendrix's producer in recent years, and he said something to me in one of our conversations in between sessions that really blew my mind regarding Jimi. We all knew that Jimi Hendrix was shy about his voice, but Eddie was positive that if Jimi Hendrix had gone on and lived and not passed tragically, that he would have gotten very heavily involved in rap music. Any thoughts on that?
He's still out here in rap music. Foxy Lady, come on, that's been sampled.
There you go.
I mean, I sampled Jimi Hendrix. I love Jimi Hendrix. But here's the thing, we got to look at life. And I say this because a good friend of mine just recently passed away. And he was a brother of mine. We grew up together. We got to celebrate the journey. Because if Jimmy would have lasted, would it have changed rock and roll differently? I believe so.
Right.
If Mama Cass didn't choke on a ham sandwich, would that have changed? I'm joking about that, but the point I'm trying to make is...
She did?
But the point I'm trying to make is...
Wait a minute, did she? Hold on.
Yeah, but they say Jimi Hendrix died, he choked on his own vomit. That's what
Right,
happened. And if they'd have got to him in time and cleared his throat, he'd have been alive. It was just the master planner. We cannot stop. We got to stop trying to defy the master planner.
Right.
That's one reason why I don't go into buildings and people falling on the floor and screaming and hollering, acting silly, saying, "Oh, my God's the best God." No, it's not. The master planner is looking at all of us and laughing. Sometimes we plan, God laughs. I hear that all the time.
Oh yeah.
All the time. So that's like saying, well, if Biggie was alive, what would he have been doing? I don't know. Tupac was alive, what would he be doing? I don't know, but we lost a lot of people in this milieu of folks that passed away.
Do you chuckle when there's comparisons and debates over who was greater, Tupac or Biggie? I mean,
No comparison.
What's
I was
this,
there.
Dre?
I was there with both men.
Okay.
No comparison. They admired each other. They worked together. It came down to, once again, the entourages. That's what happens. Your guy's guy, who's the guy, tries to show the other guy who's tougher than the other guy so they can make a point. But if you put the two guys in a room and walked out, they're laughing and joking and smoking weed. That's what they did. They enjoyed that. Then they'd write lyrics, get on a microphone, let a beat play, and come up with a song. See, we got to stop that, all of that. Because a lot of folks out there, they're going at each other. And I say, why are millions? Could you imagine, could you imagine Elvis Presley and Elton John going at each other?
No.
Just wanting to fight?
I heard Paul McCartney was going to cap Mick Jagger, but then they thought better of it.
Think of that. It makes no sense.
Right. Were you
So when
were you disappointed when that was like? Look, to me, when this was coming out with the Tupac and the Biggie thing, the media was basically saying that one side killed the other side. I mean, is this the kind of thing that you want to have the music attached to? I mean, publicly.
That wasn't the case either.
Right, but that's what they were telling everybody.
Thing is, and that's the problem.
Right.
And that's the beauty of today's technology, social media.
We can put a stop to that.
You can put your truth out there.
Right.
But let's not believe everything that's thrown out there.
Please, yes.
Because people are saying the great legendary actor Keith David, he died. On the show Greenleaf. What are you talking? He died on a TV show. Then I saw him and I said, wait, just another movie.
I thought you were dead.
I thought you were dead. Yes, on Greenleaf. That's like, we do that because we want to be entertained. It's like watching wrestlers. When they fight and they jump off the top ring rope and they hit the ground, they got the chairs, they do all that stuff. Then they walk in the back room and laugh and put water on their head.
But again, I think it's like with everything. It's with politics. It's with religion. You said it in the beginning of the show, right? Do your homework. Do your homework and then make your decision, right?
Exactly. And if you don't like somebody, have a better reason rather than the color of their skin or the religion they subscribe to or what sex, who they like as a sexual partner. That's ridiculous.
Right.
That's ridiculous. Because if you know so much about the master planner, can I get his beeper number?
Yeah, really.